Okay, so this is part 2 of an extended session of scambaiting that started in the middle of December 2018. In part 1, I gave the scammers a runaround and dragged them off their script, resulting in this email, wherein one of the scammers tells me he regrets dealing with me and wants me to go away. Normally, once we get to this level of annoyance and frustration displayed by the scammer, the end of the game is near. But let's see if we can pull this back from the brink and play one more round. Here we go, scambaiting again. So Godwin had told me to stay out of the transaction. Thing is, if we take this whole story at face value, he's not the one in charge. So I set him straight about that. I replied to him telling him it was not his choice to exclude me from the transaction. After all, he's supposedly just working for Dr. Sarah Allard. I told him we should just get on and finish the transaction. Now just to note, at this point in the narrative, I am supposedly still in Amsterdam trying to meet the fake ING banker Jerry in person. I picked up one of Jerry's earlier emails where he had intended to say he can't meet me, but mistakenly has said can instead of can't. It's fun to seize upon any such error, as it can often completely confound and overturn the expectations of the scammers. So I replied that I was delighted he can meet me, and that we should set up a meeting. Nothing much seemed to be moving, so I thought I would ask Godwin why he was behaving so suspiciously, and if this was because he'd encountered a lot of time wasters in his line of work. Then I wrote to Sarah, accusing Godwin, Jerry and Francis of every kind of incompetence, poor communication, excuses and delays. I asked Sarah if there's anyone else she could use to conduct our business. The fun thing to think about here is that if these characters I'm emailing are actually being performed by different individual scammers, they're certain to be in close contact with one another at the other end. So in spite of my request to discuss the matter in confidence, I can be fairly certain that all of my little insults, insinuations and pot shots are hitting home. And if all of these characters are just personae of the same scammer, well, then even better, because they just have to soak up my insults. They can't let on that they read something that I never sent to them. So anyway, it does look at this point like Francis and Sarah are just sock puppets of the same scammer, or at least they're in direct contact. This was evidenced by Francis responding to my email to Sarah with an uppity-seeming message, asserting his legal authority, accusing me of nonchalance, and threatening to sue me for breach of transaction agreement. I think he probably meant breach of contract. Sarah wrote me a really long email, both complaining and also trying to explain everything, including my lack of sincerity, the lack of trust this was causing, my incompetence with the scanned documents, and also that I was trying to play prang of the transaction. Playing prang? I don't have time for those sorts of games. A lesser man might have been offended by this email, but me, well, it just gives me a warm sort of glow to read it. None of this was scripted or pasted in. A scammer had to waste valuable scamming time to bash all of this out longhand. One thing to note, Sarah claims she's always together with the other parties. We'll try to pick up on that fact in a short while. Meanwhile, I was replying to Francis, protesting my innocence and compliance, suggesting that he should complain to Jerry and Godwin. Francis responded with insistence that I send the passport page with the photo on it. It's starting to look like game over unless I comply a little bit more. So it's time to get busy crafting a convincing fake passport. But first I replied to Sarah, suggesting I could phone her at a time when all parties were together and we could sort this out. At the same time I kept up my protestations of innocence and my complaints of maltreatment from Jerry and Godwin. Then I promised Francis I would rescan my passport and send it to him. Just a note, in case you haven't remembered from part 1, the reason Francis is so upset about my passport is I scanned it and sent him only the front cover of the passport. Sarah wrote back to propose a noon call the following day when she would be at Godwin's office, so I went out that day and bought myself a pay-as-you-go SIM card, so I could call these scammers from a separate phone number that I can turn off or completely dispose of later. Francis emailed me saying, well, meaning to say that as soon as he received my passport scan, he would ask his clients to continue. Only thing is, he used wording that I found to be susceptible to an uncharitable interpretation, accidental past tense. I decided to read it to the effect that he had already received it, and was just about to ask his clients to continue, and I responded as such. This made Francis delightfully angry, and he wrote back, "What is wrong with you? Is it that you doesn't understand English?" Francis told me to stop acting funny. Well, not very likely to happen. And if I'm not ready, I should quit. Now remember the rule here, confront aggression not with apology, but with righteous indignation. I replied to Francis, explaining that he wasn't making sense and that he was messing around. Francis tried harder and managed to clarify what I already knew he'd been trying to say. Time is ticking away though here, and we won't get much further without producing some documents. But first, a phone call with Godwin. It went a bit like this.
Hello. Can I speak to Jerry? Is Jerry there?
Who am I speaking with?
It's Manuel. Can I speak to Jerry? Manuel.
This is not Jerry. You're speaking with Mr. Godwin.
Oh, sorry. I think I've dialed the wrong number. Yeah, it's Manuel. Did you know we were talking by email?
Whom am I speaking with?
It's Manuel.
Who?
Manuel.
Manuel.
You know, we had an email about the
Okay, Manuel.
about the money. Do you know the thing about the money?
Yes.
I thought I'd give you a call. I thought I'd give you a call.
Okay. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on for a minute. Yes, hold on. I will give you a call back in the next 10 minutes. I'm in a meeting, so I will give you a call back. You just hold on. I will give you a call back. This is your number, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is my.
Okay,
Yeah,
I will give you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, don't worry. Okay, don't worry. I will give you a call back in the next 10 minutes.
I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye now.
Now, Godwin did keep his promise and he did call me back. Sadly, my call recording app didn't kick in, so I can only describe to you what happened in that call. It was quite lovely, warm and friendly, and Godwin explained over and over again that whereas he'd previously thought I was joking or messing around, he now realised that I was just old, so everything was going to be okay. Also in that call, I allowed him to explain that the problem with the passport was that I had to send the scan of the photo page. Godwin followed up with his first cordial and polite email for quite a while, reminding me to send the passport photo. Now we have a brand new set of excuses. Manuel isn't being difficult, he's just elderly and confused. We'll play on that as much as we can. So I spent some time creating what I think turned out to be a fairly convincing fake passport. Of course, the copy I sent to Godwin didn't say fake across it. I just thought I'd better add that for display here. Nothing about this passport is genuine, not the photo nor any of the details, but Godwin seemed to be okay with it. I followed up just for once with a reassuring and friendly email, politely requesting their fake IDs. This request was ignored, so I will try again, harder, a bit later. I had a couple more phone calls with Jerry and Godwin. Here's how those went.
Hello?
Hello. Is that Mr. Godwin?
Yes.
Hello. It's
Manuel.
Manuel. Hello.
How are you?
I'm very good
Yes,
today.
Manuel, how
I'm
are you?
doing okay today. How are you today?
I'm all right.
Good. That's good to know. Yeah. I think Dr. Sarah said she was going. Excuse me. Was going to be with you today. Is that is?
Yeah. Dr. Sela came to my office, and this is I just left a few minutes ago because I was in a meeting and with some board of directors.
Okay.
So she couldn't wait, and the
Okay.
barrister have left too because yes. So what is there is that I don't know. I've not really checked my email today because I'm still in a meeting. But
Okay.
what I would do when I check my email, I see your passport. Hello.
Yes, that's right. I did send it
When
to.
I check my email, then I confirm your passport, your identity. Then I will ask the lawyer to go ahead. You don't have to bother about anything. But the minute I see your passport and confirm the passport, that you are the person in the passport, the lawyer will continue with the transaction.
I understand.
What you need to do
Yes.
now listen. You tell me how much do you have that you want to use and open their non-residential account?
I did want to talk to you about that because you said I needed a huge amount of money to. I think was it you or was it someone else said I needed a huge amount of money to open the account. I don't have a lot of money. I've got my savings.
Now listen. We have to help ourselves here in this transaction. Now you are the beneficiary of the transaction because we have given you the change of certificate. change of ownership certificate.
Yes.
Now listen. Yes. What you need to do is that we don't want to expose this transaction to anyone because you are our foreign partner now. And we don't want a third party to come into the transaction. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I understand. What would happen if that did happen? I mean, if a third party came into would that be would I go to prison or something like that? Would that be
No. Nothing. There's nothing. See, this transaction is it's a confidential one.
I see. I understand. So it's about secrecy.
What I'm doing here is that I'm doing my best to make sure I keep the transaction with you. And then I get the identity clear. What I will do, that's why I'm asking you, how much do you have to open the non-residential account with the ING fund?
I see what you're asking now. Yeah, I understand. Okay. Well, like I said, I don't have a huge amount of money. I've got my savings, which I think I've got about £18,000 pounds in the building society, and I probably have a few £100 in cash around the house or something like that. But I don't have much more.
Listen.
Okay.
Listen. Let's just get this straight. What I'm trying to find out so that we can know how to handle this transaction. Now, the 77.5 million is a huge amount of money.
I know. I understand that. I understand that.
Yes, and for you to open a non-residential account that will contain this amount, to avoid reason and abra, what you need to do is that you open this non-residential account with a huge amount of money. So I'm not asking you how much you have that you want to use and open this non-residential account. Then you specify, just be specific and tell me this is what I have. Then let me know how to handle the situation with the lawyer.
Okay.
Tell me.
I mean, like I said, I have about £18,000. I think £18,500 savings in my building society. £18,000, but I do need to keep some of that because I've got an operation. I need a heart operation.
Okay, let me tell you.
And when I went to the doctor, he said I've got a condition. I can't remember. It's called, I think, Bader-Meinhof condition.
Okay, now,
I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard of it before he mentioned it. But actually, since he said that, I've heard other people have said they've got it as well.
Fine. Now listen, let's do it like this. You have £18,000, right?
Yes, but as I say, I need to keep some of that for my operation.
Yes, you need to take out of some of this operations. What you need to do, you have to start the process. Now you can keep £3,000. Can you send £15,000 to Jerry? Let him open the account on your behalf.
I'm not sure. I will have to check, but I have a feeling that the operation is going to be something like about £15,000 anyway. So I need to be careful that I have enough money to still pay for my heart operation, or else, obviously, as you can imagine, that might be.
Now listen. When you pay this morning, you will have enough money to commence on your operation. Because the non-residential account, yes, listen. The non-residential account is open to you, it's open on your name. What they will do, they will transfer the money via the non-residential account to your account. So whatever amount you want them to transfer, they will be transferring the money bit by bit. If you want it to be transferred bit by bit, it will be transferred, the 77.5 million will be transferred bit by bit to your nominated bank account. What you need to do, that's exactly what I'm trying to guide you to now. Right. What you need to do, if you have, listen.
I'm listening. I'm listening to you.
Okay, fine. What you need to do, you contact Jerry. Let Jerry send you an account, the ING bank account that you will use to send the £15,000 to him. And then you send the £15,000, they will commence the opening of the non-residential account. By Monday or Wednesday, by Monday or Tuesday, the transaction will be concluded. Then they will be transferring the money. If you want it bit by bit, they will be transferring it bit by bit to your account until they transfer the 77.5 million to your account. Then we will tell you what to do with it. You understand that? So what you need to do now, if you drop this phone, I'm confident with you because I have this feeling that you are a better person. what you need to do now, contact
I
Jerry.
think we are coming to trust each other a bit more, aren't we? I know we had a bad start with all of this conversation, and I know
Yes.
I don't think email's always a very good way of communicating to other people, because sometimes you just write things in an email and it comes across sounding very angry,
Yes.
doesn't it? And I think sometimes it's
Yes.
easier
I
just
understand.
to
I
pick up the
understand.
phone like we're doing now, isn't it, really? And then we talk on the phone and we sort it all out. That's much
Okay.
better.
Now, what you understand what I can say now? What
I
you do
understand. Yes,
is,
yes.
yes, contact Jerry right away. Tell him to send you
Okay.
account for you to send you the ING account for you to send the $15,000 right away, so that we comment on this transaction as to avoid further delay. Then by
I
Monday,
understand.
Tuesday, the transaction will be completed. Okay?
So you're saying that it's okay if I spend my money that I have for my operation and put that in the account, because I'll get it back quickly, won't I? And
No, you are not sending. Now listen. You told me you have 15,000 pounds.
I have, but like I
Yes.
say, I need a heart operation, so it's very important that I keep, have money for that.
Yes, I know. Now listen to me. A heart operation, you are not doing it now. What is there is that between Monday and Tuesday, if you should send this money, then they open the non-residential account. By Monday or Tuesday, the funds will be ready for you. They will start transfer to your bank account. The 77.5 million will be transferred.
So I'll still be able to pay for my operation.
Okay. So what did you want to do now? Because the more you're delaying the transaction, it is not helping us at all. So I've told you what you need to do. Write the ING bank.
Okay.
Write Jerry. Tell Jerry. Since Jerry is the account officer. Tell Jerry, okay, I'm sending 15,000 pounds to you. Open the non-residential account today. If you open the non-residential account by today, tomorrow, then by Monday or Tuesday, they will start transferring the $77.5 million dollars to your account, bit by bit.
Oh, yeah, I understand now. Yeah, I think I understand you. Okay, so I will telephone Jerry this afternoon, and I'll talk to him about the transfer of the money from my account. Yeah, and okay. So, do I need to wait for you to have a look at the passport photo that I sent through? Okay, with that as is, because I know I had a few problems with the buttons on the scanner last night, and it took a long time to actually scan it in, and I wondered if it was okay. It looked okay to me when I sent the email, but it was I just wanted to make sure you're happy. But you're happy, are you?
Okay. Okay, now listen to me. We are just after 2 days now. We are now understanding ourselves, and I think we should keep a better relationship in this transaction. Because there are further transactions, now listen, I'm a governor of the Central Bank right here, and I have many opportunities, and I'm looking for people that I can trust. And if you can handle this very well, I think we'll have more opportunities to handle in future.
Okay.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I understand.
Yes,
It sounds very good. Okay, so I will contact Mr. Jerry this afternoon. I'll phone him up and we'll sort out the bank
Jerry right away.
account,
Yes,
and we'll get that done. Okay.
Yes. Contact Jerry right away.
Well,
send the account to you.
I must say you've been.
The minute you do that, the minute you finish talking with Jerry, you could give me a call back immediately. Let me understand that.
I understand. Thank you. You've been ever so helpful today, and I really, really have enjoyed our conversation, because I think phoning is just much better than email, isn't it?
All right. Okay, no problem.
I
call Jerry right away and get back to me. I'm in a meeting. I will get back to you through email as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello there. Is that Jerry?
Yes, speaking.
Oh, hello, Jerry. Jerry, it's Manuel.
Who?
Manuel Tourneur. You know, from Manuel. That's right. From our email conversation.
Okay.
I was instructed by excuse me. Sorry. I was instructed by Mr. Godwin to give you a call this afternoon and see if we could actually set up the bank account and transfer in some money.
Okay.
Are we able to? Did you? I had an email from you earlier saying about the passport, and I think I've managed to send you the scan of the passport now. Did you manage to receive that? Okay, and was it readable?
No, we have not received your passport yet.
Oh, okay. Are you at your desk at the moment? Because I thought I sent it to your email. Are you at your computer at the moment? Perhaps you could check your.
What is there is that just give me 10 minutes. 20 minutes. I will send you an account where you will be making initial deposit to the account, and then I will send you a form.
Okay.
You have to fill the form and return it back immediately.
All right. Okay. Let's do that then. Okay. So I shall wait for your email. Shall I? And then I will call you if there's any questions. Shall I?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your help.
One more question, please.
Okay.
And how much are you depositing as an initial deposit?
I think Mr. Godwin said £15,000. I don't have any more than that, because obviously I've got my savings for my my operation. But Mr. Godwin said we could turn the money around quite quickly. So
yes.
So yeah, because I hope you understand that the problem is I need an operation on my heart, and I've saved up £18,000 in my building society, but obviously I need to spend that money on my heart operation. So if I pay the 15,000 into the new bank account, the transaction will get done, won't it? And then we won't have a problem.
Yes. What is there is that you cannot pay the 15,000 directly to the new bank account now. You have to pay to our credit controller bank account details. We will send that to you. You will pay it. Then we can be able to activate the account locally.
I see.
And then by Monday you can be able to withdraw the. We will not move the funds from Dr. Solarade to the account, to the new residential account that you are going to open. Then by Monday you will now make transfer.
I see. So how do I pay will you give me instructions on paying the 15,000? Do I pay that at the post office or something?
No, you will transfer it to our credit controller account. The details will be sent to you by email.
I understand. Okay.
Please follow the instruction diligently.
Okay, I understand, and I will wait for your email. Thank you very much for your help today.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And yes, you heard that right. These scammers believe they're taking the life savings of an elderly man who needed the money to pay for a life-saving operation, and they're completely okay with doing that. And now, the scammers had completely accepted my story. Jerry sent me the details of the bank account into which I was supposed to pay my £15,000. At this point, I had enough information about the scammers' real identity to report them to the real ING bank. I did this straight away via their fraud reporting mailbox. I'm not sure if they took action or not, but something interesting and possibly related did happen a bit later. We'll look at that in a moment. Wait and see what you think. Godwin started to get really excited now at the prospect of getting his hands on my money, and was very keen to get hold of it before Manuel went into surgery. Just take a few moments to absorb what he's saying here. He's assuring me that it's okay to part with the money that I have explicitly stated I need to save my life, because I'll get the money back, for sure and really. I thought it would be only fair to see how good a fake ID these scammers can make for themselves, so I made an excuse that I could not transfer more than £100 without the counter-signature of my daughter, and that she was a little bit suspicious of the whole thing, so please could I have their identification documents. Godwin was itching to help and sent me 2 forms of fake ID. Jerry was also super helpful and sent me this. I am particularly impressed by how he managed to scan or photograph both sides of the ID card at the same time. Everything now being in order, I promised Godwin and Jerry that I would send the money. Godwin was delighted by this and asked for the transaction slip. I told him that I had it, but I would send it later because I was going out for dinner. A couple of hours later, Godwin begged again for the transaction slip. I told him I would get to it when I returned home from dinner. Another couple of hours and Godwin asked yet again for the transaction slip. I let him stew for a bit longer. Then I used an online fake receipt generator to create a fake transfer slip. I've actually got no idea what the real one would look like, but I figured this was plausible enough, and if I needed to, I'd make up some excuse about the bank being modernised and using tablets and mobile receipt printers. I made an excuse for why I hadn't sent the account opening form, and as it was a weekend and I had other things to do, I delayed by a couple of days by sending Jerry a copy of the form that I'd just broken by opening it in Notepad and mangling the contents of the file. Godwin replied that he'd received the transfer slip. I imagine he was pretty excited at the thought of receiving £15,000. I assured him I had sent the account form to Jerry. Jerry couldn't open the file that I'd deliberately broken. So I made an excuse, then I filled out the form, scanned it, and reduced it to resolution until it was just barely readable, and sent it to Jerry. Godwin, meanwhile, chased me for the form, but was incredibly cordial about it. Looking forward to seeing that cash drop into his and Jerry's bank account, no doubt. I assured him I'd sent the form and told him I would call him the next day. Jerry made the mistake of calling the £15,000 a fee. This wasn't what the scammers had originally said it was for. They had earlier asserted it was to line the account so that the $77 million wouldn't raise suspicion when it landed. I called Jerry out on this, as you would think a banking professional wouldn't conflate fees and opening balances. And meanwhile, I also started a series of concerned-sounding emails asking if the transfer had arrived at their end yet. Of course, I already knew the answer. The transfer would never arrive, as I'd never sent any real money. But over the next few days, I would escalate my concern and anxiety. In parallel with this email dialogue with Godwin and Jerry, in which I continually pressed them for news of the transfer which was never coming, I made a few phone calls too.
Oh, hello. Is that Mr. Godwin?
Yes, Manuel.
Oh, hello there. Yeah, it's Manuel. Yes, I'm okay today. Yes, thank you. I just thought I'd give you a call and see how it's going. See if you'd heard anything, because I spoke to Jerry on the telephone just now, and he said the transfer hasn't come through yet. I don't know if has Jerry been in touch with you at all to tell you anything, any news?
Yeah, we did information on that because I tried to reach him as well. The reason of the delay was the transaction was supposed to conclude this week. And we just new information that I was made to understand that the funds that were transferred from the United Kingdom are not reflected in the ING account. So they are still waiting for confirmation of the transaction. That is where they will comment the moving of the non-residential account.
Okay, I understand. Okay, because I'm starting to worry a little bit. I've got to be completely honest with you, Mr. Godwin. I am starting to worry about the timing and whether the money's been lost somewhere or something like that. Is that possible? Do you think?
No, nobody else knows it. The problem there is that have you checked the money have left the United Kingdom, right?
Yes, yeah. I looked in my account yesterday, and the money has gone from my account.
If the money have left the United Kingdom, definitely, we take it's an international transaction, so we take 2-3 days for money to restrict. And the period, it depends on the period when the funds were transferred from the United Kingdom to Netherlands. So if the funds were transferred by US loan, the fund would not leave that day, it's going to leave the previous day, and the previous day was Saturday and Sunday, which is not a working working day.
Okay.
When the money will arrive, we will start counting from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So we just wait tomorrow and see what will happen.
Okay. Okay, that's very reassuring, and I appreciate that. I just thought I'd phone you because I am worrying a little bit about it now. You know, you. Okay.
Don't be worried. As long as the fund was transferred, you just have to wait, and if the fund has left your account, no problem. You just have to.
Okay. Thank you very much for reassuring me. I do appreciate that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye now.
Godwin made some lame excuses about why the transfer might be delayed, as also did Jerry, who advised me to talk to my bank. I quickly slapped this down by saying I'd gone to the bank and they'd confirmed the transfer had left them and was now in control of the ING bank. The fun thing here is, don't forget, Jerry is claiming to be a senior member of staff at ING Bank, so of course it was easy to argue that he should be the one to use his influence and the resources available to him to investigate the problem with the transfer. I repeated pretty much the same message to Godwin, except I thought it would be fun to obliquely throw suspicion on Jerry, insinuating that maybe he'd taken the money for himself and maybe was not being completely honest with Godwin. Godwin, still apparently hopeful, said we should just wait and see. He also assured me of Jerry's steadfast trustworthiness and how he had a reputation to keep, and that he was a very sincere gentleman. So I just reasserted to Godwin that Jerry was best placed to resolve the problem, given his position within ING Bank. I also added a little bit about how worried I was getting that I might not be able to pay for my life-saving operation. Godwin told me we just need to exercise patience. I replied saying that I was also worried that maybe one of the intruders Godwin had earlier warned me about might have intercepted the transfer. This, or maybe something else, seemed to precipitate a change. By this time in the email conversation, one of two different things may have happened. Either the scammers just thought the transfer had failed somewhere in the system and wanted me to send it again, or maybe, just maybe, my earlier report of fraud to the genuine ING bank might have been heard, and perhaps their account really had been frozen by the ING fraud investigation team. I'd love to think that's true, but I'm not really sure. The scammers, first Godwin, then Jerry, presented me with a story that someone was trying to hack their account and the transfer had been frozen, and I should try to recall it and send it again to a different account they would provide for me. They had been trying to phone me too, but as I had the pay-as-you-go SIM card turned off when I wasn't using it myself, I made an excuse that this was because I'd fallen over and experienced a minor injury. I decided to call them again and tell them that recalling the transfer was proving difficult. Here's how that went. First, a call to Godwin to tell him the news.
Hello?
Hello, is that Godwin?
How are you?
Oh, hello there. Yeah, it's Manuel.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I'm okay, thank you. I'm recovering a little bit from. I had a bit of a fall. I mentioned in an email after. I live in a high building, and I have to go down the stairwell, and I slipped and had a bit of a fall. I slipped on a puddle of frozen urine, unfortunately, and I felt. But I'm okay anyway. I've been to the doctor, and he's given me some tablets, and I'm recovering okay now. Anyway, I expect you don't want to hear about my personal life, do you? Anyway, I did manage to go to the bank yesterday, and they said they will try to recall the transaction, but they said something like, I believe they said it may take up to 90 days to try to recall the transaction, and they weren't very confident that it would even succeed at all, because they said the money is still in the control of the ING.
It's not supposed to be like that. How is it going to take 90 days? It's supposed to be 3 working days.
I don't know. I mean, you told me this was all going to be very straightforward, and I'm sorry to say it hasn't been. Now you're saying that Jerry's bank is being hacked or something like that. And
the problem, you know the issue, the problem. The problem there is that now the bank suspected some activity trying to hack the bank, the controller, the bank controller account. So what they do was that they block the account to make sure that no transaction comes in yet until they conclude their investigation. So what is there is that they say they block, which means they feel like they block the account based on your transaction couldn't come in. So what is there is that you have to report the money back. When you report the money back, what they will do is that they will give you another account, another special account that you will use in transferring the money to them.
yes,
So that they open
yes. But as I say, when I visited the HSBC bank yesterday, they said that because it's a transfer to a different bank, so it's a transfer from HSBC to ING. If it was a transfer inside of the same bank, they said it would be straightforward. But because it's a transfer from HSBC out to ING, it goes into a commercial account or something apparently, and then the money is now in the control of ING, and for HSBC to call it back, there has to be some sort of forms filled in and process, and they said it could take, maybe it wouldn't, but they said it could take as long as 90 days to get the money back into my control, so that I can transfer it back out again.
That's a very long period of
time. I know, and as you can imagine, I'm very worried about this, because as we talked about before, I need that money for my operation, which is about a couple of weeks' time now. So this is getting quite serious now, isn't it? So
that's exactly what I'm fighting. That's exactly what I'm fighting for, to make sure that this transaction is concluded, so that you have enough money to do for operation.
Yeah.
So
yes.
What you need to make sure the bank, because I've not seen it. I'm a banker too, and I'm giving you based on my experience. You make sure that, because there's no transaction, whether to a different account, whether to highest it takes is 7 working days. If not 3, 7 working days, no matter how long it takes, because it was not into the account, but it's just in the base of ING Bank. It's just in the base of ING Bank. It's not direct into the account. So what is there is that the ING should tell your bank should not call ING bank, telling them they can message the ING bank, tell them to return the money back. And in 3 or 4 working days, they started. That will be done.
Yeah,
what they are going about is a long process.
I hear what you're saying, but as I say, I did visit the bank, and they said that the process was what it was, and that there's a form that has to be filled in to recall the transaction, and so on. So the problem, I think, is that because I'm trying to recall the transaction from this end, they have to make sure that it hasn't been cleared at the other end, and so on. So I think if Jerry was able to push the transaction back the other way, I think it would have probably been a lot simpler. But
you know what? I'm in a meeting, and I'm in a great meeting. I think we have to talk much later. Let me think the next half an hour. I will call you back so that we talk.
Okay.
Now, maybe by then, I might have find a way to contact Jerry through their directory. I will contact Jerry then. We know how to go about it.
Okay. You do that then. Thank you very much for your help. Okay. Bye bye.
Then a call to Jerry, and in this call I decided to blow cover and bring this little scam baiting escapade towards a conclusion.
Hello.
Hello there. Is that Jerry?
Yes, speaking. I've called you before, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I had my phone switched off at the time, so I wasn't able to receive your call. So sorry about that. But I've just spoken to Godwin, and he said I should call you and talk to you. So here I am. I was just saying to Godwin that because of this problem, I don't know if Mr. Godwin told you, but when I went to the bank yesterday, they said that they were trying to recall the money from the transfer, but it might take as long as 90 days to get the money back, and obviously that's a long time, isn't it? But I just don't know what to do now.
Yes, I don't want to put it in video, but I just wanted to talk to you because the complaint is that the account, it is we that instructed the financial authority to return your money back to you because the account has been hacked. The account has been hacked like cyber criminal. So,
obviously, it's very disappointing to hear that a criminal is involved in this transaction, because it's very worrying to me.
they are hackers.
A hacker, yes, yeah, that's right. I mean, they're bad people, aren't they?
So we have the authority, the financial authorities that control every transaction regarding financial transactions, that control financial transactions. They have investigated the matter, so they decided to place your phone on hold.
Yes, I understood that from the email. Yes, but when I spoke to my bank, they said that the money was still in the ING. It wasn't in their control. So they're trying to recall it, but there were some forms to fill in or something like that. And yes, but they said it might be quicker than 90 days, but it can take up to 90 days to recall the money. And anyway, so I was thinking, if I go to the bank this afternoon and call you from the bank, could you explain to them what you said to me so that we can sort this all out?
Yes, I will say, but it's better for you because they have been investigating the matter. It's better for you to just tell your bank to tell IS to return the money back.
Yes, I think they have already done that, but I was just thinking perhaps you might be able to explain using the right terminology and all the words and things like that. Do you think you would be able to explain to them?
We are doing everything within our power.
Yes.
Because in the court now, I am not in the position to use them to explain to them the way they will understand. It will be the ISD that will explain to them.
Yes, but you work for ING, don't you? I recall you did say something to that effect, that you work for ING Bank, so I'm sure they would they would be more prepared to listen to. I'm just thinking that I get a bit confused about some of the words and the terminology and all of the technical things, you know. And you being a professional banker probably would be able to talk to them in terms they can understand.
There is nothing to worry about. You see the response back to you. You will not take lightly.
I'm very worried though, because as you know, I have an operation on the 12th of February, which I need this money to pay for. So even if it's only 2 weeks that it takes to resolve this, I could be in quite serious trouble. So anyway, so I'll go to the bank this afternoon, and if I may, I will phone you from the bank and perhaps ask you to explain to my personal banker what's actually happening, and perhaps we can speed it up that way.
There is nothing to worry about.
Okay. So you will be able to explain that to them, will you?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you really think so? Because I reckon you probably won't.
That's why we don't want your money to go into the wrong hands. That is why we said it to you.
Yeah, I just think given that you're a scammer, you probably won't be able to explain to them. You know, given you are a 419 scammer, I was thinking you probably won't. You won't be able to give them any kind of rational explanation for why you're trying to take an old man's money away.
What? I said tell them to call me and we explain to them.
Yeah, no, but the thing is though, you're a 419 scammer. It's very unlikely that you're going to be able to come up with a decent excuse for why you need to take an old man's money away.
I said you are returning your money back.
No, there isn't any money. I've never sent you any money, actually. Just so you know, the whole of the transfer was a complete fiction. There isn't any money. You don't work for ING Bank, and you're not who you say you are.
Okay. I will just send it back.
Bye-bye.
Having spilled the beans to Jerry, I quickly called Godwin again before Jerry could call him and tell him the game was up.
Hello, is that Godwin? Oh, hello there. I was just on the phone to Jerry just a moment ago. I'm afraid to say he was quite uncooperative with me, and I was hoping for some help, but he was unable to do that because he's a 419 scammer. It turns out he's actually he's just a criminal basically, and trying to take my money. Well, it's obvious, really. I mean, from the very start, it was obvious that the both of you are scammers. You know, it's pretty obvious that you are just 419 scammers. Who is this? This is the person you've been speaking to all along. This is Manuel, you see. There never was a transfer. You've been wasting your time. How do you feel about that? I imagine you're a little bit disappointed.
I don't understand.
You don't understand? I think you understand only too well. You were trying to steal the money of what you thought was a dying man. How do you just...
Which money are we trying?
You were trying to take £15,000 from a dying man. I wonder how you morally justify that.
How do you mean that I'm trying to steal money? I'm trying to steal money from my money. What do you mean? Now listen. We are you understand? I don't want to talk about Manuel is not right.
Mr. Manuel doesn't exist. Mr. Manuel is not a real person. You've been talking to a character. I don't know how to make this more clear to you, but Manuel doesn't exist. The address that you've been dealing with doesn't exist. There was never a transfer for £15,000. I just made it all up. And, you know, I just want to know how disappointed you are that you're not going to get your £15,000. That you're a criminal. One more question I have for you. Does your mother know you're a criminal?
I'm not a criminal.
Your business is stealing money from vulnerable people.
Which money should I steal from you?
You didn't steal any money from me because I'm not an idiot. However you are, you've been wasting your time for, 6 weeks now?
I don't steal any money from you.
No, of course you didn't. Of course you didn't, because I was never going to let you steal money from me. You were trying to, obviously, weren't you?
Now listen, let me tell you. You are the one that has been playing a fool of yourself because it's not me. Why did you stand up complaining then? What are you doing now?
What am I doing now? I'm rubbing your nose in it. You have failed.
No.
You have failed to scam anyone today.
You never employed me to fire me. You can say you have been fired.
You may have misheard me. I'm not firing you. I'm telling you, you have failed.
Listen, I never failed.
Well, I think you have in this case.
I never fail.
Tell me how successful you feel right now.
How successful I feel?
Yeah.
I feel okay.
You feel okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I bet you'd rather have had £15,000 out of my account though, wouldn't you?
If you think £1,000 or not, it's none of my business. So I don't know whether you send it or you did not send it.
No, I didn't send £15,000.
My transaction, you know, my transaction, and that is what exactly I'm trying to say.
Are you still trying to hold on to some shred of credibility here?
What kind of credibility are you talking about?
Any kind of credibility, really. I mean, do you feel you have any at the moment? You didn't answer my question anyway. I'm sure you do. Lots of other vulnerable people to scam, yes.
You have been playing pranks on yourself and not me, okay? Whatever thing I'm doing with you, if you're in Manuel or whatever thing you feel.
You're a criminal.
You're playing pranks, you're playing it.
You're a criminal.
So it seems like not much chance of a further conversation by phone. Let's have a few parting shots by email. So I emailed the whole gang, which I think is only 2 scammers for 4 characters, and asked them to rate their disappointment on a scale of 1 to 10. Francis was the first to respond, blustering about how I was fake, and still limply trying to pretend that the 77 million was a real thing. Godwin also tried the same. I'm not really sure why he felt the need to keep up pretense that there really was a transaction. It seemed that the entirely fictional nature of Manuel and his heart operation was still not clear to him, silly Mugu. So that's the end of play. Or is it? Wait and see in part 3. Actually, no, I'm not going to spin this out for another part. Here's what happened next. A week or more passed, and I decided to try phoning both Jerry and Godwin again. Neither one picked up, so I sent all 4 scammers in the party an email of complaint. For once, I forgot to turn off the pay-as-you-go SIM card, and in a short while after my calls, Godwin tried calling me back. I wasn't ready with the call recording, so I declined the call and phoned him straight back. Here's how that went.
Hello?
Oh, hello.
Yes.
Just returning your call.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I'm just returning your call.
Yes, I got a missed call on my phone.
Yeah, I just thought we could talk actually this morning. I thought it'd be interesting.
Okay. Please, we can talk. Can we talk in the next 1 hour, 1.5 hours?
No, I thought you talk now.
You said?
Have you got other people to scam?
Yes, I said let's talk in the next 1.5 hours. I'm very busy now.
You're busy scamming people, are you? I
Is that okay?
understand you're busy scamming other people.
You said what?
You're busy scamming other people. You know, stealing their money.
Then Francis emailed me, unbelievably, still protesting that the transaction was genuine and that he was a real, actual lawyer, which of course I never believed. But just in case we need more evidence of this, here's a closer look at his fake ID. And here's a closer look at the address of the office where he works, literally a hole in the ground. His message truly warmed my heart, not because it was a particularly warm email, but rather because it wasn't scripted or pasted at all. So he'd spent time writing this, and also because he repeatedly told me to stay out of the transaction. Frustration level in this email was obvious and quite lovely. So one parting shot before we go, I just replied, "Lighten up, Francis." So I think we're probably done with these scammers now. I could try contacting them again, but I think we're into diminishing returns at this point. So I hope that was interesting to hear about, and in particular, how they would have been perfectly happy to steal the vital savings of an elderly man. It's just as well Manuel isn't real. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.